Cerberus ASMR, and today we're going to be looking at Nintendo Power Magazine. This is volume 134 from July 2000, and it features one of my absolute favorite games from the N64, which is Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards. And there's some discussion on E3 2000. So let's dive right into this one. So in addition to Kirby 64, this also has some articles on Banjo-Tooie and The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. So this is the player's pulse, and this was a very fun time for games because everyone was talking about the Dolphin, and when the Dolphin comes out, and the Dolphin was a code name for the GameCube, so everybody was all abuzz about the next Nintendo system. And this person writes in and says, I think the big surprise will be a sequel to Super Smash Bros. Can you imagine it? More characters, more moves, more levels. And as we now know, the sequel was Super Smash Bros. Melee, which is an all-time classic game that a lot of players still like to see in tournaments. And I myself loved playing Super Smash Bros. Melee. I usually would play as Falco. Did you guys have a favorite character to play as in Smash Bros. Melee? So we have the power charts, where of course Pokemon is still the reigning champion. And then we have some really great Harvest Moon 64 art right there. That's awesome. And of course we had all those amazing N64 clear plastic consoles. Alright, here we go. So this is the feature for Kirby 64. And it says, waiting to inhale. And this, if you're unfamiliar, was basically a 2.5D side-scroller where you, of course, play as Kirby. And the fun twist of this game is not only do you absorb enemies to get their elemental powers, but you can combine the powers in any way. And that creates these incredible power combos. So many of them are super incredible. I really liked using Fire plus Bomb is Fireworks, and you could basically just firework yourself to the end of any level. They're all super creative and interesting, and the fun thing is that there's a few of them, like fire and ice, that is kind of like a dud. It's basically a power that doesn't really work very well, so it is a combo you can make, but not every single combo is going to be as powerful as others. Paired needle with a bomb to make Kirby explode with spiky shrapnel. Use the control pad to position the floating explosive. So you were basically invincible as that little spike ball, and then you could shoot those spikes. So a lot of them are super fun, but for speed strats, there's some other ones that are a little bit better for going quickly. Lots of really fun combinations to experiment with. So, Kirby 64 is definitely one of my favorite N64 games, and they did release it on the Wii as well for the 20th anniversary, where you could also play Kirby 64. That was another great way to play it if you missed it on the original hardware. This is going over some of the different themed worlds that were all interesting and visually different. And another one of the interesting things is there would be hidden collectibles, and it would show a certain color on the wall or block, and that would correspond to the power combo that you needed to open it. So that would incentivize you to go through the levels with a specific power, so you could get all the collectibles. It was so much fun. I really would love to have a remake or successor to this game if it wasn't just a remake, but, a sequel that used the same idea of combining different powers. That would be super fun. Here we have a coupon for Electronics Boutique, $5 off. And it expired July 31st, so you did not have a lot of time to use that. Here's the article on Banjo-Tooie. Set to release in fall of 2000. A sequel that a lot of people were super excited about. Classified information section where it would show you some of the codes for popular games at the time. So the first one is for Excitebike 64, and in the cheat menu you could type blah blah to enable big hit mode, show off to activate the stunt bonus, and Invisorider to make the bikers perform a vanishing act. Definitely miss the fun codes that used to be very common at the time, and not to mention the ones that actually gave you special powers and lives and a bunch of stuff that either doesn't exist or you have to pay. So it was really fun to just put in a code and have something cool happen. Legend of Zelda. Majora's Mask. I never played this one. The idea of the limited time kind of stressed me out, even though I know you can turn back time. I didn't quite know that at the time that you could do that, but the famous moon that was going to destroy the planet. Had a lot of interesting characters and abilities with the different mask masks that you could get. The launch of Zelda Majora's Mask is November 24th. Warlocked. I'm not familiar with this one. Look at it, it's some very interesting sprites. It's a pretty cool haunted tree looking thing right there. Yeah, this old sprite work is really cool. There it is right there in the forest area. Kind of a cool looking game. Mega Man 64. A brief history of Mega Man. Mega Man 1 and 2. I know a lot of people think Mega Man 2 is one of the best Mega Man games. What do you guys think? It's funny whenever I see this character, it actually always makes me think of Dead Rising instead. I saw that they're planning to remake the original Dead Rising. So we'll see how that turns out. The Counselor's Corner. Some more tips for games. And in this one, they're talking about how do I open the original Excitebike. When you finish the tutorial, you'll be able to play a perfect reproduction of the original NES version of Excitebike. So that's pretty cool. I feel like Nintendo doesn't do that as much anymore. Like in the Animal Crossing for the GameCube, you could unlock a lot of NES games that you could actually play within Animal Crossing. And I thought that was just like the coolest thing. But I don't think they like doing that anymore. So you can either buy it separately or pay for the online service. But that was a cool feature in older games. There's going to be a new Perfect Dark coming out. I know a lot of people are pretty excited about that as well. In Harvest Moon 64, how do I work in the rain without getting sick? There's more in the old fishing pond than fish. A grateful water imp will appear if you throw at least 3 fish back into the water. You'll automatically eat the blue apple when the imp hands it over. It will temporarily protect you from sickness. The Pokécenter. So the big thing was the pending release of gold and silver. Which I know I was just beside myself with excitement for that game to come out. This question asks about the Safari Zone, and the answer is to try throwing both food and rocks to distract Pokemon so you can catch them off guard. But we now know that the best strategy was just to throw the Safari Balls every time. That was your best chance, so you didn't even have to worry about feeding them the food or pretty mean to throw rocks at the Pokemon. I think they took that out pretty quick after this. But just throw Pokeballs and you'll have the best, or Safari Balls rather, and you'll have the best luck. Here's a cool sample team that doesn't use Mew or Mewtwo, that had Electrode, Executor, Dragonite, Blastoise, Moltres, and Snorlax. That is a pretty good team, I think. Some good coverage. Dragonite was one of my favorite Pokemons in the original. I really love the original red and blue Dragonite sprite. It looked really cool. And then, of course, new Pokemon revealed. In the original, my starter of choice was Bulbasaur, but for whatever reason, when I played the second one, I thought Cyndaquil was the coolest, so that was my Gen 2 starter. What did you all pick if you played Gold, Silver, or Crystal? I know I eventually went and replayed them with all of the starters, but Cyndaquil was my pick the first playthrough. I guess since I already did Bulbasaur in the original, it was time to move over to a different type. So here's that big E3 three-part coverage. Talking about some of the big games coming out near the end of the N64 era and for the Game Boy Color. So there you have a little screenshot of Pokemon Gold and Silver and Paper Mario. So at this time, Eternal Darkness was still planned for the N64, I think. But as we know, it eventually was moved over and was released on the GameCube. And Conker's Bad Fur Day was another big game at the time. This is interesting. So this interview, Zelda and Beyond, Nintendo Power asks, how were you able to develop the game so quickly? And then it says that it was using the same game engine, and in addition to the returning team, 5 new developers straight out of college were hired to work on a new Zelda adventure. That's just crazy because of how many people are required for modern AAA titles. And even when they're using the same engine, like Tears of the Kingdom took forever to come out after Breath of the Wild. So it just kind of goes to show how the times have changed from the smaller development teams to what's needed currently. Crystalis. Here's another one I'm not really familiar with. Monster Ranger, trying to get in on some of that Pokemon money. Heroes of Might and Magic. games featured on these pages. Here we have a Lemmings game. And the now playing section with the reviews. And they gave Kirby 64 an 8.1, which I would say is a little low, but I guess I can understand. It wasn't the most challenging game in the world, but I loved it anyways. Super Bowling gets a 7.1. And some of the Game Boy games that we looked at are rated here. So Crystalis gets 8.4, Warlocked an 8.2, and Heroes of Might and Magic gets a 6.7. So here's a little bit more on Paper Mario, and I remember just staring at these screenshots. I could not get over how cool this game looked. I'm really grateful that they remade Thousand Year Door, but I would love to have a remake of the original as well. So hopefully that's still a possibility. But I loved the original Paper Mario. Pokemon the Movie 2000. Ogre Battle 64. Donkey Kong Country in the next issue, along with Mario Tennis. So that wraps up another Nintendo Power magazine. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you watched the whole video, you're awesome. So until the next time,